Hi, good morning. So, two things I want to make clear. I'm one of those people who just writes better than they speak. And the second one is I'm going to try to speak to you in about 7 minutes or less about something that I have tracked, analyzed, and written about for the last 7 or so years. So it's going to be interesting. But having said that, I want to talk to us this morning about what Russia has been up to in Africa in recent years. And what I want to do is to give you a bit of context for how we've gotten here, what Russia has been doing, why we should all care about it, and perhaps why this is something that the whole world should pay attention to. And if you look at it, after the fall of the Soviet Union, for quite a period, Russia wasn't very keen on Africa. A lot of embassies were closed. We didn't have a lot of high-level engagement, or at least those ones that were in the public domain, until about 2006 when Putin visits South Africa. And then on the back of that, we had several other high-profile visits in 2009, and then later on from 2014, after the annexation of Crimea, Russia really doubles down on its re-engagement. And this gained some more momentum in 2022 after the invasion of Ukraine. So we have seen a lot more of it. And so what Russia is trying to do in Africa now, in my view, I can put it in three facets. So one will be an engagement on a diplomatic level, or what I'll call diplomatic charm. There's also mercenary adventurism. We are the new frontier. If you want to join a private military company and fight anywhere, Africa is ripe for business. We'll talk about that. And the third one is disinformation, yeah? And so in terms of diplomatic engagement, if you look at the last 2 years, the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov, has been in Africa 6 times, at least the ones that, we've all seen, none of the under the radar visits, 6 of them. Do we know by comparison how many times Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, has been to Africa? Anybody can hazard a guess? Someone said 2, that is close. So he's been there 3 times. And this is the interesting thing. So with Blinken, it's all very open. The US State Department website tells you where he's been, the miles he's covered, and it's very easy for you to see. For Lavrov, you really have to dig. Either you have to watch it closely or you have to go and do some proper research, right? And so since the invasion of Ukraine, he's been to Africa 6 times. And I'm not including North Africa, and Saida is not, it's not my, I'm focusing on Sub-Saharan Africa. But he's been, if you put in North Africa, he's been there much more, more times than the 6. And so what happens with this diplomatic charm is, one, the optics of it. Oh, look, the West is receding, but then we are the friends of Africa. And that has a benefit to the psyche of the public, okay? And then the other thing that happens is there's a lot of strategic cooperation deals that are signed. Most of these ones will just be primarily in 3 areas: military and security cooperation, nuclear energy transfer for us is for creating electricity and stuff. But for the Russians, I mean, you get out uranium and other stuff, but then also in terms of the natural resource mining areas. And then the other thing that has accompanied this diplomatic charm has been this mercenary adventurism. So if you're like me and you grew up in the 90s, right, around action movies, you have some that come to mind, right? Rambo, Walker, Texas Ranger, Commando, If you're Indian, I used to love Mithun and others. Some people might not know that. So at the moment, that's how it feels like in Africa, right? If you went to Russian pro-war social media channels, most of them on Telegram, but also on X and other places, what do you see? You're going to see pictures of people who are heavily armed to the teeth, and they're deployed somewhere in Africa, right? And so what has happened since 2018, when we had the first Russian mercenaries being deployed to Africa under this new iteration, that was in the Central African Republic. We call it CRR. It was a few, about 40 or so initially, went to 100, now it's close to 4,000, okay? But then after that, 2022, we went to Mali, now we're going to Burkina Faso, now in Niger. These mercenaries have also been offered to Libya. They're active in Libya, not been offered, but they have also been offered to Chad and Guinea as well. So you can see the picture. It's about expanding, okay? And there are issues that come with that: human rights abuses, there's been a stifling of dissent, criticism of the government, but also any highlighting of issues to do with abuses has been stifled. Now, the third element of this Russian renaissance in Africa has been propaganda. And we tend to wonder and say, well, what has disinformation and propaganda have to do with anything? And I think we heard from some of the speakers this past week, including Jen, but then also Matt, I think Eric spoke about it, and a few other people. The person who controls the information environment generally gets with a lot of influence in how you shape narratives and stuff like that. And so in Africa generally, this disinformation has targeted the French to a greater degree, but also the US and other Western countries. So European countries have been caught in that. And so what has happened has been to try and create a narrative around neocolonialism and exploitation of resources, which is ironic because Russia is doing the same thing, exploitation of resources, but also to show that these countries are bad for these African countries, and they are not good for sovereignty and independence, and Russia is standing for that. And so the end result has been, apart from the countries where Russia is already active, this disinformation has spread to countries that you wouldn't imagine. For example, Nigeria. People don't think that Russia has been having disinformation there. But Russia has been active in Nigeria, other weird places like Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, Senegal, but also Benin and even Ghana. And so for me, the thinking is, why should we care about this one? It's because what Russia has been doing has emboldened undemocratic regimes, has fueled human rights abuses, has also led to the spread of disinformation in ways that a lot of people are struggling to contain. But also beyond that, we've actively had a situation where you see, because of this Russian involvement, there is no incentive for people to adhere to democracy and the rule of law. But also beyond that, we're having massive resource exploitation, which has been an African curse for the longest time. And so for me, the challenge for us all is think about it, because whatever Russia is doing in Africa now is something that can be exported to your country or to your continent, but also beyond that poses a major challenge to our institutions of multilateralism. Thank you.